It's Drew Tessier's mostly queer comedy show. Let's talk, y'all.
Welcome to the first episode of the Mostly Queer Comedy Show. I think that's what we're going to call it, where we talk about being gay and comedy, and those are kind of the two things we're going to talk about. I wanted to have you as my very first guest. I run the New York Queer Comedy Festival here in New York City. Hundreds and hundreds of people go through every year. It's sort of a long series of shows that lead up to the finals. We just had the finals. Tim Murray is the current winner of the New York Queer Comedy Festival. Now, it is the New York Queer Comedy Festival. You are bi-coastal,
Sexual,
correcto?
coastal, yeah. I am bi-coastal, yeah. I lived here for like 7 years and loved it so much. And then I always did improv here. And then I moved to LA like 6 years ago. And when I moved to LA, I was like, okay, nobody knows who I am here. I'm going to start doing stand-up. And yeah, so then I'm sort of live both places, I guess.
Because there was a little bit of controversy. I will not name names. There was one comic that did through folded arms say, "So let me get this straight. So the winner actually lives in Los Angeles." But no, you're on both of our coasts.
Yeah, I mean, I've been living here for the last 6 months, so.
Well, you talk about being a teacher. Do you teach in New York or do you teach in LA?
I teach in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big commute.
Yeah, it's far. But, teachers get paid so much money.
Sure.
I'll commute as far as I need to. For that.
I mean, sometimes they put their own money into like construction paper and stuff, but if you just say, fuck it, you guys don't get any supplies, then you've got that money to
then
travel.
You're totally good.
Yeah.
I'm doing my taxes right now, and there's like a whole section for that. I was like, are you a teacher? You could write off like the crayons and markers and crap that you buy.
All of your tears.
Oh, yeah.
What age grade do you teach?
I teach everybody. So I teach in mental health facilities. So I have everybody from like, I'll have like teenagers, but then I'll go to another facility where I'll have like, anyone from age 18 to like 90 years old.
And your husband, right? You're married?
Fiance. We're getting married in a couple months. Yeah.
Okay. And he's currently in a Broadway show.
He just left Aladdin, but yeah, he was in that. Yeah.
So will you be back sort of more in LA now, or?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. We literally have, every time people ask us, we're like, I don't know. I have no idea what we're doing. We're going to go back there and get married. And then I have this TV show with my buddy Michael Henry that we're doing in LA. And then I'm going to start touring my Witches show in the fall. So then I'm just going to kind of like be on tour for 3 months. So I don't really know where I'll be.
Tell me about the Witches. How did this start? Because that's, I think, I think I knew of you. The first year we did the festival, I think you were still living in New York. So I think we may have had some communication and it didn't work with your schedule or something. And then I first really became aware of you on social media with the Witches, I think. And then I met you. I had produced a show, Stephen Brower and Friends, who was another finalist, who's also now on Broadway. What is Stephen's show is...
Lempicka.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Plus, he's got his one-man show that he's also doing, Gay Robot, which I saw in previews before he took it to Scotland, which is a fun show as well. I met you when you did that show. And I think sometimes I go into, when I meet somebody that has kind of a big social media presence, this is something I need to get over myself. I think I do go in just assuming they're going to be a dick. And you were so nice. And then I asked you to do the festival, and then you did my Christmas show, and you're just a doll to work with. And you just went in and crushed. And I mean, honestly, there was no real discussion with the judges. I mean, it was just kind of like Tim. Great, that was it. I mean,
that's
it
so
was
nice.
Yeah, no, you and you're
that day was really cool. I really appreciate you having me because it made me feel. I mean, how often do you like win things in life? Not often for me.
I feel like you're winning in life, Tim.
Oh, thanks. I got a literal crown. It was like so sweet and so cool. And like my cousins were there who'd like never seen me do stand up before, and they were like, "Does this happen every time? do you win a crown?"
Travel with a big posse of family. I find
I have a gigantic family. When I tour with my buddy Michael Henry, who lives in LA. And every city we go to, he's like, I swear to God, you have a female cousin in every city.
Yeah, how much family lives in New York?
My whole mom's side, my mom grew up on Long Island.
Oh, okay.
So her whole side of the family is like here. So they come and support me when I do shows here, which is so sweet. And I have a very cool family. They're awesome. And I'm super Irish Catholic on like both sides of the family. So like lots of banging, no condoms. My grandparents were like on both sides just going after it. So I have so many cousins and so many.
So your mom's from Long Island. Where's your dad from?
My dad is from Ohio.
Okay,
where
and
I'm
you
from.
grew up in Ohio.
Yeah, yeah.
And where'd you go to college?
Miami, Florida.
Ah!
Yeah.
I just interviewed another guest, Brendan Tassif, who also went to college in the South, or in Florida.
What school? Don't say Florida State. I'll leave right now.
No, it was FAU. It was not as good as your school, but I
Drag them for filth.
I kid. So you were a theater kid at Florida, not Florida State. I'm sorry, at Florida,
How dare you, Miami?
Miami.
Yeah, we're supposed to care about that because it's like a football thing, but I actually don't give a shit.
Well, I went to
about
Auburn, so yeah, sure. But it's not a SEC school though, right?
that. What does that mean? What
The
is that?
Southeastern Conference. You know, I've got. What's funny is you guys cannot see my crew right now, and I've got somebody sitting here who is a football person from the South, and I know is dying to pipe up right now.
Literally
but
wants
he's
to
just going to
punch
let
me
the gays
directly in
sort
the
of
face.
wade their way through this. Brandon, you can tell us, what division is Miami in?
Miami is not in the SEC.
Okay, I didn't think I knew
knew
that.
that. I knew that.
I knew
Yeah, I
that.
know, I know, yeah, bro,
But
I knew that.
but what are they in?
They were in the ACC for a while, but that whole it's conference realignment, so they're kind of floating around right now.
Well, the first show I produced when I was here, I did a show that was all comics that went to SEC schools, but I've sort of, well, no, but listen, because I went to Auburn, and there's an Auburn, I'm a member, I may actually be an officer this year for the Auburn alumni group here in New York. So every one of those schools has an alumni group. So that's why I was like, well, fuck, if every alumni group
That's really
sends
smart. Yeah.
5 people, I've got an audience. And, you know, some of the schools that you would expect, University of Alabama, assholes. But surprisingly, University of Florida, the nicest group of fans you could ever want to meet. Like, I never would have guessed that. And they take over 3 different bars on game day here in
Dang.
New York. And they have a huge alumni group in New York. And they were very supportive of the show. The Auburn Club is very supportive of the show. Mizzou was, although it's a very small group. Vanderbilt was all right. But yeah, I need to bring back my Southern show. I got sort of sidetracked with all this gay stuff. And here we are. But back to the question, the witches, how did that come to be?
Yeah, let's get not sidetracked by gay stuff. And let's talk about me in full Wicked Witch drag. You know, I have several friends from New York who I saw doing like musical comedy shows, and I had done such a hard pivot into traditional stand-up. I know you know this life. It's like, okay, well now I'm doing this, so like I need to prove to everyone that I can
Right.
could just be me and a microphone and I can make people laugh. And then I was like, why am I so focused on labeling myself this way? And like, I don't know, square peg, round hole kind of a situation. And I was like, okay, I feel like I've done that for like 5 years. I've been hitting the stand-up scene. And I was like, but what about this whole part of my life that I left behind?
Right.
Which is like singing and acting and theater. And this show honestly just like really poured out of me in such an easy way. Like I was like, I saw, you know who Matt Rogers is?
Sure.
Bowen and Matt. I saw his Christmas show, and I saw my friend.
Which, by the way, I think is the greatest name for a Christmas show I've ever heard.
It's fucking genius.
Yeah, it's called Have You Heard of Christmas, which I think is so funny.
And I did the Edinburgh Fringe a bunch of times. So I also saw like Kat Cohen's musical comedy show, and I was like, wait a minute, this is like something that I do. Like, why am I acting like I don't?
I want to
do
get back in my
this?
theater gay roots for sure. I miss doing kind of more showy type stuff.
And like you and I were talking about before this, like, you know, doing just traditional stand up is interesting because most of the clubs in America, in the world, is mostly straight people going to see the show, which is great. But a lot of gay people, like queer people, don't go see stand up because it traditionally like hasn't been for us. It's not like a space where we're really like supposed to be.
Absolutely, and that's, you know, when I talk about it all the time. When I moved to New York, I didn't see a lot of opportunity to get on stage and be gay. That's why I wanted to start the New York Queer Comedy Festival. But when I started recruiting for the festival, well, the floodgates just opened because this city is fucking filthy with homos with theater degrees that aren't doing anything right now, that have the stage presence, that have the experience, that
Truly.
have funny shit to talk about. And, you know, the first year, I felt like it was a lot of, you know, former chorus boys doing the same grinder jokes back to back, you know, cis white guys. But the festival's gotten more and more interesting and rich and all sorts of different voices. Now, when you started the Witches, did you already have kind of a decent social media following at that point, or did which led to which?
That's a good question. I guess they both kind of helped each other, but yeah, I've been like, I sort of had always been making like comedy videos online, and like, like every 2 years, one of them would really pop off, and I'd be like, okay, there's something here. Like, I'm good at writing sketch comedy. Like, I know that every now and then one of these catches fire. This is like way back, like 2009 and 10. Like,
I'm familiar.
you were there. You were there. Like YouTube, like on YouTube, they would pop off. So then when these new platforms started happening, like TikTok, for example, I was like, okay, maybe for once in my life, I should get in on the ground floor, and, like actually focus on this. I don't know. I've always been a person that's like, especially when you like do comedy live, you're like, I don't want to be seen as an internet person.
Yeah.
So I always like fought it, and my group of friends were like, in New York especially, we like felt like we were kind of like the cool kids, like kind of like making fun of people that were doing that.
Right.
And then one day I literally just got my head out of my ass, and I was like, what if I stopped fighting this so hard and just tried to make this happen for myself?
Or just make the art you want to make and not care what other people think about.
Literally
Right.
exactly that. And then it's crazy. Like the more I did it, the more I felt myself getting better also at joke writing, because I was practicing doing it every day, like writing, 1-minute sketches online or whatever. And so that started to help. And then once I got like a certain amount of TikTok followers, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to take Witches, which is like part stand-up, part storytelling. I'm in full drag and musical comedy to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And when I decided to do that, I was like, I think I have enough of a following to go over there and people will come, which was a huge mistake and a lie, because the way those algorithms work, especially TikTok, is like in your area. So when over in the UK, like all those UK comedians, they have like a big TikTok following, their shows sold out. And I was standing on the street being like, okay, I have 100,000 followers, but nobody here has any clue who I am. So I was standing on the street in full witch drag, like painted green all day long in a dress, being like, please come to my show. Please come to my show. I beg you to come. I made my mom stand out there with me. And
Or
she's
don't
like,
make the art you want to make. Maybe you should think
right,
more about
maybe you
this.
should go to grad school and become a therapist or a finance person. Literally, my mom on the street with me going, please come see my son's show. He's gay. My son is ghost. My son is gay. See his show. But then
God, I would love to just see my mother form the words, my son is gay, with her mouth.
but then that was really rad, and I got like
Sorry, guys. Just it is when it's too close. It does start to
Peak.
when
Okay.
when you guys are left.
I've started to peak as well, so it's kind of good. Yeah, so then I did the show in Edinburgh, and it was amazing. Like I had small audiences some nights, and then some nights I would sell out. It was in like a 120 seat theater.
And then how many total performances in Edinburgh?
26. In 26 days straight. There was 27 days. There was one day off in the middle, like one Monday.
So now that how many times have you done Edinburgh?
This was my third time.
Okay.
But it was my first time doing my own show.
Uh-huh.
The 2 times I'd gone with like musicals, with like UCB comedy musical people.
So like by the time it was done, was it a feeling of like, okay, I'm glad I did that, or do you feel like, what do you think was like the thing that you took that I was like, oh, well, that made it all worth it because X happened out of...
Definitely I did it very smartly, I will say, and I think people like have asked me like, should I go? And I have a million things to say, because it's like, it is everything you can imagine a wild, life-changing experience can be. It's absolutely horrible. It's grueling. It's exhausting. I have friends who it like breaks them.
I've heard that story more than once.
Nobody comes to your show, and like I've been at friends' shows where like there's 2 people in the audience.
Yeah.
But for me, I knew what I was doing. I was like, I'm gonna go, and no matter what happens in this 26 days, I know I can post about it enough, and I'm gonna try to get enough reviews and buzz that then I will tour the show in America, in cities where I know people are going to come see it, and I'll make the money back that way, and that's what happened.
So I have a show coming up. We have a show coming up at the end of this month. We're March 27th at Greenwich Village Comedy Club. Tim Murray and friends. Come see that. But I would also really like to, maybe at Broadway, I want to do your Witches show at some time too. I mean, how much tech does that need to...
It's a lot more tech involved than you'd like.
Okay.
than you want for it to be.
That is a very
It's-
fair answer.
There's like 8 songs in the show, and they're all on tracks. And
Oh, well, that's no big deal, though.
yeah, but I'd like to do it with like lights and stuff. Like I'd like
Mm.
to make it like kind of more of a theatrical experience. And I try. Thank you. Perfect. We're good to go. I try to do it in places that like are like I did stand up recently in a boxing ring in Vancouver. It was like the coolest people ever, but these just like straight people running this boxing gym that they were putting up some stand up shows like on the weekends. And so we asked if we could do our show there, and it was so rad.
Huh.
But I can't do witches there. It's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gotta be like somewhat theatrical, you know.
So have you done witches in New York at all?
Yeah, I did at Joe's Pub and I did it at the Green Room 42 like the last 2 years.
I love Green Room 42. I
It's
think it's
rad.
such a cool space. I mean, I've wanted to, which I haven't circled back to. Green Room 42 is this. It's in Midtown in the Yotel on the second floor, but it's a really really pretty space. And I've wanted to do kind of an elevated comedy musical show
You
for
totally
a while.
did.
Yeah, something that's got more of like a supper club feel to it. Guys in tuxes, women. Well, I'm not going to tell gender how they dress, but a more elevated sort of
Formal
thing.
wear vibe.
Formal wear.
Yeah.
Again, and that would get back to, like I said, I want to do some musically singy stuff. Well, you said you got in early on social media. So you started with Instagram first, and then you sort of already had some momentum when TikTok showed up. Was that sort of a COVID thing, or?
It started maybe like a little before COVID, but yeah, during COVID, it was like, okay, just like buckle down and do this and like commit to it.
Right.
Because I'm so ADHD that like I would get an idea and then want to like, I'd get bored with it fast and want to do something else. And there were just a couple things that caught fire that I was like, okay, don't be stupid. Like, keep it simple, stupid. This is working. Just use this format and just change the jokes, but like keep the format. And sure enough, like that's what marketing is, I guess. Like people love it.
And then how much time a day do you spend on like forming social media? Yeah, that's
It's like a full time
Yeah.
gig. And there are several days where I'll take a total break from it because I'm like, I'm burned out. You know, like it makes you. Takes away from writing stand-up or writing plays or writing, more stuff for witches or whatever. It's several hours.
I mean, I've fought it, and I posted one TikTok video ever. I was smoking a bong in it. It got taken down, and I was like, "Fuck it." But
That's the really frustrating thing with it, especially being, a queer person or a comedian or both.
because
It's
the
like,
Chinese government doesn't like you to be you.
there's a lot of stuff you cannot say and cannot do.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We made a video about twinks the other day. It got taken down almost immediately.
Wow.
The word twink was like offensive. It's offensive to me as well. The word
Yeah.
twink.
I
I don't ever
get
want to
called
hear it.
that
I don't
all
want
the
to be
time.
near. Yeah, I'm sure. I was thinking that when I walked in. So look at this twink.
I'll show you some pictures of me from 20 years ago. That's interesting. But it's sort of a mental process of acceptance I've been going through lately. I mean, I spent now granted
Becoming a twink.
I identify as a twink. So, no, I do not. I'm fully in my daddy era. I'm fine with it. You hit it on. It is a job, and I spend 8 hours a week already at open mics. Granted, I run the open mics, but more
still.
than 8 hours, 16, because most of them are 2 hours. But it's just the time that you put into it. So I'm trying to get into the frame of mind of every day kind of devoting, but I don't enjoy. During COVID, I did nothing with social media. I mean, there was a period that I deleted it. I'm not a scroller. I don't.
That's great.
I don't get a whole lot of thrill out of. I mean, if I'm checking in, it usually is business related. And it's funny, when I started the New York Queer Comedy Festival, I will always give her credit for this. My niece, who I believe is now 24, 25 or something like that. She said, you need to start an Instagram account. And I was like, pass. I was like, I've done Facebook, I've done Friendster, I've done MySpace, I've got the whole evolution. I'm
Not doing
out.
it, yeah.
But I built the festival on Instagram, not from getting any sort of big hits or anything like that, but just direct messaging queer comics. And I think one of the reasons that queer comedians are having such a moment right now is not just the fact that, it's very trendy to be gay and blah, 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 and the world's getting more accepting and everybody has a gay kid, relative, whatever. But also, we have been direct messaging each other on dating apps way before the straight communities showed up. I mean, this was sort of like a skill that we taught to them, like the Native Americans planting corn. Like, here, this is how you have sex in the modern world. But because the very first joke I ever wrote was a Grindr joke. And I would have to get on stage and tell the audience what Grindr was before I would ever, and straight comedians would be like, oh, we need something like this, but like for straight people, like Grindr, but for straight people. And I'm like, oh, that would never work. Women are better than that. But
Yeah.
I was wrong. I do think that we were just so comfortable with DMing each other sort of early on I met Gus Constantelli and I were buddies for a while just through messaging each other on Instagram before he even moved to New York. And then he did the festival the first year and he was a finalist the first year. But yeah, that's how I literally had been doing stand-up comedy for about 12 minutes when I was like, I'm going to start a festival.
That's so smart, and I feel like you're exactly right. And not just like the dating apps and hookup apps, but just in general, there are straight people everywhere. But if you're queer, you had to look and message and find people. Like even before the hookup apps, I remember being like 16 on MySpace and like looking up gay, like trying to find gay people in Ohio and literally just talking to them.
Yeah.
Just being like, like just try, or like, before I came out, like my first couple months of college, same thing, like getting on Facebook and like finding out who the gay guys were at school. And then, even coming out, like you have to do that work to meet up with people. Because otherwise,
So
you don't see that many gay people at the airport or at the grocery store.
Right. Oh, yeah. Tell me about it, girl. I was in Alabama. So I assume before dating apps, you must have had dating websites. Were you a laptop person before dating apps on phones, or you've basically it's been dating apps on phones the whole time you've been in the streets?
Yeah, I never really did laptop.
So you didn't have
dating apps.
gay.com, Plan It Out. So what was your manhunt? What was your first?
Grindr came out when I was a senior in college.
Okay.
And so that was like kind of the first thing I used. And I guess, oh no, there was one. Do you remember dudesnude.com?
I'm familiar with it, but I don't think I ever dabbled.
So I'm lying to you. I definitely did use the laptop a little bit now that I think about it, like 18 to 21, 22 era. But I mean, also like luckily when you're that age, you don't have to very much because you're young and hot. And if you go to the bars, people are like, Who's that young twink?
Yeah, I didn't have that. There were no bars. There were no people. I was one
Really?
of like 5 people in a chat room for the entire state of Alabama. I mean,
Oh
this was
my
like, yeah.
God. I mean, I picked going to Miami, Florida so I could be gay there.
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and
Or
there were a lot
Latin.
of other.
Those are your 2 choices.
Yeah, those are your 2 choices. I chose gay. There were a lot of other gay guys there who did that same thing, and you could go to the clubs in South Beach and whatever. And we would like party with the like Miami City Ballet Boys. It was a fun time. But I also, when I would come visit New York and like visit friends who had moved to New York, I would get on Craigslist.com.
Yeah, Craigslist was my
Men
favorite.
for Men. Yeah. M for M, right?
I mean, I loved Craigslist. I mean, it was like Burger King. You could order it up and have it your way. I mean, like, you could be really specific about what you were looking for.
Yeah.
You didn't have to have a bunch of, like, and then you just knew this ad's not for me, move on. But, I mean, my ex and I met on Craigslist, which was just a random hookup in my office when I still had my own office. And then we were
Obsessed.
together 10 years. Yeah.
Damn. I used to check missed connections all the time. You remember Misconnections?
Sure, but what were you looking for?
Myself. I was like, I would like make hardcore eye contact with guys like around the city, and then be like, I'm not kidding. I was like obsessively would check it and be like,
Wearing a T-shirt that says "Find me on Misconnections."
literally, yeah. And I'd be like, I've never told anyone this before. This is like unlocking a memory. But yeah, then I would check it like every day. This is, I guess Grindr existed, but it was not as popular as it is now. So you couldn't just like open up Grindr and be like, oh, I'll find that guy on here or whatever. And I would go to the gym and have like, like a very flirtatious thing in the locker room. And it happened, I think 3 times. One time it was random, and it was like I saw a guy with a Planet Hollywood folder on
Shut the fuck
on
up.
the
That's insane.
on the N train going into Astoria, and I had like been living in Astoria for like a month, and I was like, oh my god,
I could be this
I
guy.
made it. People think I'm hot. Like someone on the train thought I was hot because I was working at Planet Hollywood in Times Square and like memorizing my server thing. And then one time I flirted with a guy hardcore at the gym, checked it. Sure enough, he wrote a thing about me and was like, if there's any chance that was you. And we went on several dates after that.
That's nuts. So scrolling through your history, you're more excited about the time that you showed up on the Misconnections on Craigslist than when you went viral.
Definitely. Way more validating.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. I have never had, do I want to say any luck? Almost.
Period in my life. Never had any luck.
Almost. Almost no real experience meeting somebody out in the wild in real life at a bar, I'm not good at sort of talking somebody up and that sort of, it's why my entire dating life has been sort of the evolution of online dating, because when I was in college, now I came out when I was like 18, 19 years old at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd sort of like come out, done a lap around the bed, went back in, and then had a girlfriend who was a theater major. I mean, she was in Guys and Dolls. So the writing was on the wall. Nobody was fooling anybody.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't anything. Auburn was kind of in between Atlanta and Montgomery.
Oh, yeah, kind of middle of nowhere.
And that's when in Atlanta there used to be a place called Backstreet that was open 24 hours that was like 4 floors or something like that. And that terrified me. I went there once and was intimidated by it. It seemingly at the time just like a sea of big, sexy, shirtless men.
Sure.
And then Montgomery, actually, there was a place called The Bar that I used to go to, that I would just go. I was kind of a rave kid, so I would just go and like dance by myself in my big giant Jinko jeans and my spiky hair and all my bracelets, and I just liked dancing by myself. And then it got shut down because the mayor of Montgomery found out that there was a queer bar here in Montgomery. I heard it I'll never forget it, on a radio show in the morning. There's a queer bar here in Montgomery, and they shut it down.
Whoa.
So, it literally was just meeting people. That was the only way I could meet people online.
Yeah.
All my friends were straight, and, I had good friends that looked after me, but I didn't really realize until I moved to New York that, there was always kind of a low-level anxiety anytime I was out at a bar in Auburn that just any minute I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me. Mm-hmm. Because I was pretty gay, damn it, at that point anyway, especially for down there. Somebody threw a pool ball through my windshield one time.
Whoa.
And it was funny because I'd been doing Grease, and the way that director had interpreted Grease, I was playing Teen Angel, and I was wearing a ton of glitter. And so I was hammered. We had been out at the bar. Probably shouldn't have been driving anyway. But got done at this just straight Auburn college bar at the end of the night. And I had a PT Cruiser in college, one of the first ones to roll off the lot. How gay is that?
Obsessed.
So I opened the door, And I was like, fuck, there's glitter all over this cart. Ow, fuck. And then noticed that, put all the pieces together. But,
Oh my God. Are you sure it wasn't because of your performance? They were like, you're flat, actually, on that note.
no, that was flawless.
You're like, no, honey. The Montgomery reviews were off the chain.
I'll tell you though, when I started college, I was president of the Auburn Players 2 years in a row. Our fundraiser used to be to turn the entire theater into a big giant, what do you call it? Haunted house during Halloween. And we would pull all the furniture up out of the basement and get all the costumes out. And I think back then we were making like $2,000 on it or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is sort of where the business side of me kicked in early. And the faculty hated it because it interrupted classes for a week and it was just a big pain in the ass. And so I decided to try one year, instead of doing the haunted house, to do Rocky Horror. I got all the stuff donated, the cards from, I knew people at a casino, the toilet paper, we made our own confetti. Everybody that was part of the ticket price, was they got their own bag of shit. And we made like $5,000 on that. But I didn't realize until later that when we showed Rocky Horror at Auburn, it was the first time there had ever been a showing of it because it was banned when it came out in 1979 in Alabama.
What is the deal with the South?
Yeah, man, this week especially, it's, I went, well, I don't want to get into that.
Like, I hate to sound like, I don't know, basic. It's like everybody talks about this all the time, but it's like, get a grip. Like, it's so.
We can't all be as progressive as Ohio.
I know, the most progressive place in Ohio. But I don't know.
You guys abstained from COVID entirely. I think it's.
Yeah, we did. Our whole slogan is like, we're not as bad as Florida.
Yeah, at least ours is, at least there's Mississippi is usually, but Alabama is really.
I mean, that's really backwards. I will say, like, Ohio is obviously very backwards as well for many things, but I don't know. There was just always a sense of, like, the Yankee of it all, I guess, is like there's even though it's a very conservative state for the most part, it can go purple. Like, it went blue for Obama both times. And I think there's just some sense of, like, a little bit more progressive vibes than what I feel in the South. Like, it just really like there was the first gay bar I ever went to was in my small town in Sandusky, Ohio, and it had been there my whole life.
And you blew through the entire gay community, and then you had to move to South Florida.
Exactly. I hooked up with every Ruby Tuesday busboy that there was, and I was like, well, done this town. I know it was literally like in the fourth grade. I remember people being like, "Did you know there's a gay bar in our town?" Like, it was disgusting.
And
of
you're
course.
like, go on.
Yeah, I was like, location, please. Is there a cover or? And I always knew, like, I was like, one day I'll go there. And then I worked at the Ruby Tuesday in the mall, and everybody was straight who I worked with, except for the guy who took my virginity, and then like two other older gay guys. And when I say older, they were 30, but to me, when I was 18, they seemed older. And but all the straight people wanted to go to that bar because it had the cheapest drinks. And so they were progressive in that way of like, whatever, let's go to the gay bar.
Yeah.
You know, they were 21 years old or whatever. So that was, I remember the first time I set foot in there, and I just remember being like, I can't believe this is here. Like, this is down the street from, like, you know, the Subway that I've eaten at for lunch. Like, I cannot believe this is here. And it was the coolest bar. But the fact that was able to exist, like, Montgomery shutting down that bar, I don't think that would have happened in Ohio, which is the difference.
I don't know if there's still, I don't know. I honestly don't know if there's a gay bar in Montgomery, but there used to be when I was in college. Both of them have both shut down. There was the bar, which was kind of like in a strip mall. I mean, like the size of this living room. This studio. But there was another bar called Pink Flamingos.
Love that name.
That I shit you not, was a double wide trailer in the middle of nowhere, and I would drive from Auburn.
Double wide?
An actual double wide. You would drive from Was it a trailer? I mean, there was a trailer part of it. I know it was sort of a stone, like a cinder block building, but there was a trailer involved. You would drive from Auburn to Montgomery, from Montgomery like another 20 minutes into the middle of fucking nowhere. And I remember this one night I had a few drinks, and this big giant drag queen named Gayla DeLust lip synced to Faith Hill's "Breathe." And I swear to Christ, it's one of the best performances I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it was just like life changing for me. And I didn't have gay friends, so of course I wanted to drag my girlfriend there, and my
Your friend was
my
a girl.
child, right,
Yeah.
and break up with her right there in the middle of the dance floor.
Look at what I am now. Just you throw glitter in the air.
Do Faith Hill again. Come on, show her. So I took my buddy Katie there, and it seemed off, and she didn't care that I was gay, and like it wasn't, but it just, I don't know, like it wasn't. I wanted her to be as excited about it as I was, which obviously, of course not. And it wasn't until years later that I was talking to her, and I was like, there was really just one old man working the front door that was security, and like a group of rednecks could have just pulled up in a pickup truck with baseball bats and just gone through that place in 10 minutes. And Katie was like, that's literally the only thought going through my head the entire time, was just how we were in the middle of nowhere. It was so, she just felt, and I think, I always push back on, now that I'm an older gay, I used to always push back on the older gays and would say, I miss the gay scene when it was still dangerous and still edgy, and it felt, and I was like, fuck you, let's have rights instead. But, there was something kind of scary and exciting about it.
Yeah, I think there's room for both. That's what I always feel too. Like, especially in this weird dichotomy that we're in now, like we're in between Gen Z and the Boomers. Like, I think there's room for both of what everyone is saying. Like, the young people can learn a little bit of like chill out, and the old people can learn a little bit of like, maybe don't grab our butts all the time. There's like, I think there's room for both of what you're saying. Like, it is great how progressive things have gotten, but yeah, I do miss, like, I mean, this place was in my hometown, was called Club Eccentricities, and it was like dingy, hole in the wall. It was a little seedy and scary. And there's of course something exciting about that. Yeah. What the bar was called before that? That existed long before I was born.
I'm obsessed with small town bar game. Go for it.
In the 70s, it was called the Fruit and Nut Club.
Wonderful.
Isn't that amazing?
I'm trying to remember if Pink Flamingos was in fact the first bar I went to, or the very, very, very first one, which I may not have even been out yet. I used to work for the National Cheerleading Association. I was doing a camp at University of Georgia. So in Athens, Georgia, Bone Shakers was the first club.
Stop. Bone Shakers. Obsessed. Yeah, names of honestly just names of small town businesses, period. But names of gay bars is like an extra special ridiculousness.
I mean, I've been to gay bars that, you walk in and you're like, is this just someone's house? I mean, like, that just feels so, and then I think about that, like, if I did live in a small town, would I want, sure, I would want a place for community, but then would it just be like you're just hanging out with the same schmoes, all that, like, it's...
Yes, that is the vibe. And
Yeah.
it does kind of depress me when, like, we tour so much, so other than like Chicago, New York, and LA, pretty much every other city in America, the gays are like, yeah, these are the same 30 gay guys we've seen for the last 5 years of our lives. We've all slept with each other. We've all dated each other. Like, we forget there's really not that many of us in the world.
I don't
like,
forget. So you came out in college.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You had already done theater and all of that. So when did you do what was your first stand-up comedy, sort of sans the theatrical part of it?
The first time I ever did stand-up was in the 4th grade at the talent show.
Okay.
And I remember loving that and like feeling so excited. But then, that was kind of a one-off thing. And I think I
Well, you had
always
to finish elementary school,
Yeah.
and I think that was a smart decision.
You don't think I should have just gone right to the
Just
clubs? Right to the open mics?
when you're young and pretty, they say you actually should just skip school and do it. So
I wasn't pretty when I was so my parents said, "Stay in school, boy." So then that happened, and I remember loving that. And then I always wanted to do stand up, like since I was really young. Like my brother's 5 years older than me, almost 6 years. So he was always kind of my like hero, and
Sure.
like he's straight, and
Yep.
we would sit and watch. He would show me so much stand up and do that kind of thing that's like, unfortunately, for better or worse, still stuck in my head, which was just like not funny, not funny, not funny. And then when he would laugh, I would laugh. Kind of, I'd be like, oh yeah. So I was like trying to like learn humor through him, but it did kind of mess with my brain because it was like I was developing someone else's sense of humor. Even though we're brothers, so like we have a very similar sense of humor, but I'm also gay and he's straight.
Yeah.
Like there's a very big
Sure.
difference there. Like he doesn't like really like campy stuff. Like anytime somebody was being like hammy, he would hate that. And I honestly think that like sort of stripped away this like, sometimes I'm like, I wonder if I could have like been good at impressions or like he hated anything like that. He would be like fast
Interesting.
forward.
Is he still really strongly opinionated with media?
Oh my God. To the point where it's like, I'm like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't care how much you love this Quentin Tarantino movie or how much you hate whatever.
Oh, he's that straight, huh?
He's that straight.
My brother's straight, obviously. Well, not obviously, but incidentally, he's 8 years older than me. So same thing, just kind
Yeah.
of like my hero and
Yeah.
whatever he was listening to, I wanted to listen to. So same. But if you like, it's interesting. Like if he'll send me like a long email or something, and I'm reading kind of something he's written, it looks like something I've written. I mean, sort of our
Interesting, yeah.
language is kind of similar.
Yeah.
In that same way. So because it's always interesting to me where guests were getting their stand-up comedy from. Like I've had some people talk about, it was the Comedy Central Presents or the HBO specials, or for me it was my first exposure. Well, first exposure. I think the first one that I just really watched on a loop and like memorized chunks of was Bill Cosby himself.
Oh, cool.
When I was they played that on HBO just all the time, and then it was kind of VH1 Spotlight. But like, where were you finding stand-up?
A lot of Comedy Central Presents for sure. I think maybe if it was something else, it could have been. But I think we watched Last Comic Standing, or some sort of. I know we watched like a reality TV competition show about stand-up, and I remember it imprinted on me so specifically that I remember like the jokes from
Yeah.
it. Like I remember like the first joke that I heard thinking like that's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. It was this like straight male comic talking about strip clubs. It was like, oh, strip clubs are so lame because like, I mean, have you ever been starving and then someone offers you a piece of plastic fruit? I was like in the fourth grade,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I didn't understand that was a metaphor. I didn't understand that was mapping. I didn't understand what it was, but I just like knew that I loved it.
Have you met Jim David?
No, I don't think so.
So there's a lot of qualifiers in this sentence. I want to make sure I get it right. Jim David is the first gay male comic to have his first special on Comedy Central.
Wow.
He's been doing comedy for a long, long time, and he's been out for most of it. He's got an album called Gay Comedy for Straight Audiences, because he's done like a lot of cruise ships and stuff like
Yeah.
that. He's also from the South, so I like his sort of Southern storytelling style. He's very cool, very nice guy. I want to have him on the podcast. I remember him on Stand Up Spotlight, and he didn't necessarily say he was gay, but it was one of other than like the Bill Cosby stuff, one of the first jokes I learned, and the fact that this is stuck out in my mind must have sort of like cued something out. It's one of my favorite jokes in the world. He said he was on Manhattan, standing in line, and he overheard this straight guy say to another guy, God, they just need to take all these faggots and put them on an island. And I said to them, I've got news for you, buddy. You're on it. And I thought that was the funniest
That's so
joke.
good. Yeah.
And then to actually later meet, Jim, like, because he's been, again, doing comedy for like 40 years.
Yeah, wow.
And it's fascinating to hear. So because, as gay comics, we have to come out every time we get on stage.
Yeah. That's
So
funny that you said that because I'm wearing this shirt that says "Let me ask my wife," which like I always I just assume at this point in my life that everyone knows I'm gay from the moment I go anywhere.
Right.
But the moment they see me. But I think I forget sometimes that I grew up in Ohio where I like learned to code switch. So like sometimes when I'm walking on stage, maybe that's not what everyone realizes right away. And I was opening for a big gay comedian, and I was
As in he's large or famous?
famous, very thin, very frail. In fact, he could stand a gated no, very famous, and he so he has this like huge following who knows him. So I was opening for him, and I opened with a joke about getting married, and so now I've learned to say my boyfriend and I are getting married because afterwards all these women came up to me and they were like, "We saw your shirt. You're talking about getting married. It took like halfway through your set for us to realize, oh, he's gay."
Huh.
But yeah, that's like you have to come out like you have to. And I've had a lot of people tell me that if they didn't know I was gay, they would think I was an asshole. I think maybe because some of the jokes
I can be both.
I'm both. I think some of the jokes that I tell maybe can be misconstrued as like, oh, if you thought that was about a woman, that would be a horrible thing to say.
Right.
But that's not what I'm saying.
Or if I were a straight man calling a woman a cunt, which you do on stage.
My famous set. That's the name of my album. Yeah.
So you've never had a period of your life of trying to do stand-up comedy and not necessarily tell the audience that you're gay. I mean, that's always been sort of built into.
Well, no, so I did in the 4th grade. Obviously, no one knew I was gay then. But all my jokes were like about Jewel, and so like you could assume, like.
Okay, so that gives me a better idea of the age difference between us. So Jewel was big when you were in 4th grade. Okay, cool. I was driving and smoking cigarettes.
Well, my sister was driving me to school, so she's probably your age, and she would put Jewel and Alanis Morissette on. So those were my like music taste. That's my music taste. Is like my siblings' music taste. And so then I did it again when I was 15 at another talent show, and that was also like obviously nothing about being gay. And then I guess from then on, I would carry like a little book of jokes around because, you hear on TV interviews or whatever, like Jerry Seinfeld or whoever I heard saying like, always carry like a little book and write down whatever. It was a kind of pre-cell phone where you could like had a notes app. So I had my little book, and when I was 19 or 19 in Miami, I had my book bag in the backseat of my car, ran up to see my friend for like 20 minutes in her apartment. When I came out, someone had smashed the window open and taken my book bag, which had my computer and my book of jokes in it, and I didn't try stand up again until I was 30, because I was like devastated. I was like that was probably like 5 or 6 years worth of ideas.
Wow.
That were gone like that. And so I was like, I don't know. I think I was just too depressed to like, and that mixed with like, I was in theater school and I felt like I, had to give this a chance, and I was trying to learn how to sing and like whatever. Yeah.
Do you remember any of your jokes from when you were in 5th grade doing stand-up?
I know the Jewel one was like, I don't remember the exact jokes at all, but I know there was something about like Hanson being lame and everybody loving them, and something about Jewel thinking that she's such a good singer, and then I did like an act out of like what Jewel sounds like, and it was like goat sound. Jewel, if you're watching, I do not think that. I love Jewel. I'm obsessed with that Jewel song that's like, say he's a faggot.
I love Jewel. We when I was in my 20s, we used to live at the Duplex on Wednesday nights. In fact, one of the judges for your festival, Brian Nash, who's the head of entertainment for Atlantis Cruise Line, he was the piano player down. That's how I know him.
Amazing.
So and then Shanna Sharp, who I went to college with. She was Adelaide. I was Nathan Detroit and Guys and Dolls. She used to sing down there. She owned a bar in Harlem for a while. She's had a bunch of lives too. Very cool. But she used to sing Foolish Games. It was sort of on a regular and just
song
every time.
I think that was the song that I did in the set when I in 4th grade, when I was like, you sound crazy. But crazy good, Jewel.
I didn't tell anybody it was gay. I did, however, get on stage and do a Jewel impression.
I know. Somebody was like, I don't know. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So you're about to go on tour again? Is that a fact, or what
I'm kind of-
happens? What happens next?
I'm kind of always a little bit on tour with my buddy Michael Henry that I mentioned. He's like extremely YouTube gay famous. So we tour together where he does a little bit of stand up, I do a little stand up, and then we do a bunch of crowd work together. It's super, super fun. And we're going to like Seattle and DC and Chicago in April. And then I'm right now booking my Witches tour for, I'm going to go back to Edinburgh Fringe and then do September, October, like 20 different cities.
Amazing.
I'm so excited.
I want to see I'm dying to see I mean, I want to produce the Witches show, but I'm dying to see it
I would love
as
for you
well.
to see it. I'm so proud of it. It's really like it does feel like just an amalgamation of like everything I've ever worked on in my life. I put it all into this show. Like I do musical improv in it, and I'm singing, and I'm doing stand up, and I'm doing a lot of crowd work. Yeah, it's fun.
And if you're scrolling through Instagram looking at his videos, find the one where he makes fun of Gen Z drag queens on Drag Race, because it kills me and it's so funny. And just to have sort of seen the evolution of drag in general, but let alone Drag Race. But now that you see kids, that this show has been on their entire life, that have never even, or I won't say never, but don't have the experience of sort of years and years of shitty bar shows and all the stuff that I feel like goes into, you know, a good performer.
Yeah.
But it's so funny, and you're so funny, and thank you for coming on today. March 27th at Greenwich Village Comedy Club, Tim Murray and Friends. It's a killer lineup. I'll be telling some jokes. Come see us, and thanks for tuning in, you guys. Oh, plug your shit.
Oh, you can follow me at tmurray06 on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And yeah, come see me on tour. You can find all that information on those socials.
Awesome. Bye, y'all.
It's Drew Tessier's mostly queer comedy show. Let's talk, y'all.